Hello, it's the witching hour. Welcome everyone to Exe Files on Phonic FM 106.8. I'm your host, Alison Rockbrand, and I'm here with my co-host, Richard Freeman. Hello, Richard.
Hello, and hello, wireless listeners.
We have some very special guests in the studio tonight. The excellent theatre company, Exeter Alternative Theatre, are going to be talking about their current production, CROWLEY, the Wickedest Man in the World, which is going on stage this Monday. So we have Louis Ravensfield and Philip John, who are both performers and involved in the production. Hello.
Hi, good evening.
We're going to start with a little bit of a classic case, which Richard has prepared for us, in lieu of news.
In 1899, a flamboyant character arrived in Inverness. He purchased brooding Balestine House. He purchased the brooding Balestine House on the shores of no less a Fortean place than Loch Ness for twice the amount it was worth, becoming the self-styled Laird of Baleskin. The man was, of course, Aleister Crowley, and he had good reasons for paying over the odds for the remote, foreboding house. He chose Baleskin and it's on account of its occult architecture. Previously he had scoured Britain for an abode to suit his needs and found none. Once in Baleskin, he intended to carry out the ritual of Abramelin, an ancient rite that took 18 months to perform. The ritual harkened back to the 1400s. The ritual was translated by a Jewish scholar called Abraham the Jew, or Abraham of Worms. It's a North African manuscript. Abraham was wandering the desert in the Middle East looking for true magicians from whom he could learn. Finally, he came upon a wizened mage called Abramelin on a wooded hill outside in Egypt. It dealt with the summoning of demonic or angelic forces. The ritual demanded idiosyncratic architecture, and Crowley had previously tried to replicate this in his own London flat, though it had not the desired effect there. In the great beast's own words. During this time, magical phenomena were a constant occurrence. I had two temples in my flat, one white, the walls being limed and lined with 6 large mirrors, 6 feet by 8, the other black, a mere cupboard, in which stood an altar supported by the figure of a Negro standing on his hands. The presiding genus of this altar was a human skeleton, which I fed from time to time with blood and small birds and the like. The idea was to give it life, but it never got farther than causing the bones to be covered in a viscous slime. Exactly whose skeleton it was and how Crowley came by it is unclear, but it featured in one of his most notorious and amusing spells. Alethea Giles, a local artist and lover of one of Crowley's poet rivals, W.B. Yeats, was sent to visit Crowley. Yeats had scratched his foe's hand with a brooch and carried a drop of the beast's blood back to her spouse. Yeats allegedly used this spell component to invade Crowley's dreams, but more of the precious fluid was needed, and Giles was sent back. This time the beast was ready and had already sprinkled Giles's apartment with a magic potion. Upon arriving at Crowley's flat, she became overcome with lust for the skeleton and made love to the blood and slime-festooned cadaver. Disney have actually brought the rights to this. After this boning, she was promptly rejected by Yeats. Yet more happened at Crowley's flat, apparently on account of the occult decor. The demons connected with Abramelin do not wait to be evoked. They come unsought. One night, Jones and I were out to dinner. I noticed that while leaving the White Temple, the latch of the Yale lock was not caught. Accordingly, I pulled the door to test it. As we went out, we noticed semi-solid shadows on the stairs, whose atmosphere was vibrating with the forces we had been using. We were trying to condense these into sensible images. When we came back, nothing more had been disturbed in the flat, but the temple door was wide open and the furniture disarrayed, and some of the symbols had been flung around. We restored order and then observed that the semi-materialised beings were marching around the room in an almost unending procession. When I finally left the flat for Scotland, I found that there was no way to take the mirrors out except by the way of the Black Temple. This had, of course, been completely dismantled before the workmen arrived, but the atmosphere remained, and 2 of the men were put out of action for several hours. It was almost a weekly experience, by the way, to hear of the casual callers fainting or being seized by dizziness, cramp or apoplexy on the stairs. It was a long time before those rooms were re-let. People fled instinctively at the presence of something uncanny. Similarly, later on, when I gave the rooms up on Victoria Street, a charlatan thought to better himself by taking them. With this object, he went to see them. A few seconds later, he was leaping headlong down 5 flights of stairs, screaming in terror. He had sufficient genuine sensitiveness to feel the forces without possessing the knowledge, courage and will to required to turn them to account or even endure their impact. CROWLEY's attempt to perform the ritual at Boleskine fails. Nobody knows quite why, but the rite was never completed. The semi-formed shadows he evoked in London seem to have been called again. However, John Simmons, his biographer, recounts that the house's lodge and terrace became peopled by shadowy shapes. The place seemed to have a strange and violent effect on people. Workmen employed renovating the villa went berserk and attacked CROWLEY, who had to knock the man out and lock him in the coal shed. His lodge keeper, who had been a teetotaler, went on a 3-day drinking binge and tried to murder his own wife and children. CROWLEY finally left in 1918, but some believe he had left something behind. Subsequent owners of Boleskine have reported disturbances. Musician and member of the former group Led Zeppelin, Jimmy Page, bought the house in the 1970s. His friend and custodian of Boleskine, Malcolm Dent, experienced the house's dark side on several occasions. Most of the oddities occurred during upheavals in the house. I'm not talking about wallpapering, but structural alterations. Anytime there was anything major, it was almost as if the house didn't like it. And if we didn't get on with the job and get it finished, something would let us know about it. We would be waked during the night during heavy bangings of doors, and all over the place, carpets and rugs rolled up. It was though as a reminder to get on quickly and get the job over. Another time, Malcolm and some friends saw a statue of the devil rise up from the mantelpiece, float to the ceiling and smash to the floor. The most horrifying event happened early one morning when a disturbance reached a crescendo. I was awakened in the wee small hours and just knew something was wrong. I was petrified. Something outside the bedroom door was snorting, snarling and banging. It sounded like a huge beast. I had a clear picture in my mind of what it looked like, but there was no way I was going to open the door. I had a knife at my bedside table and opened the blade and just sat there. The knife was so small it wouldn't have done any good, and I was so frightened that I just had to have something to hang on to. The noise went on for some time, but even when it stopped, I still could not move. I sat in bed for hours, even when daylight came. It took a lot of courage to open the door. Whatever was there, I have no doubt it was pure evil.
Fascinating. Yes, a very classic case, and somewhat of a well-known case. Some parts of it.
Yeah, and G. Page doesn't own Boleskine anymore.
No, that's right.
It sits in private hands, and apparently they don't like people going snooping around up there. But a whole load of weird stuff happened after that. Was just the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah, I'm sure. Is this something which you've covered, Louis, in your production? You were saying earlier that you have quite a wealth of material.
Yeah, certainly Boleskine is one of the things that we couldn't fail to include in our production, which ultimately I class as an artistic homage to Aleister Crowley, but Boleskine does indeed feature in the production.
Excellent, that's fantastic. And by the way, the introductory music which you just heard is Cradle of Filth, Mr. Crowley, and that is from the production Crowley, the Wickedest Man in the World by Exeter Alternative Theatre this Monday. Do you want to talk a little bit more about that song and some of the other music that we're going to hear later on?
Yeah, sure. The version that you heard this evening was a cover version, the original version having been written and performed by Ozzy Osbourne. So in doing kind of research into getting music together for the show, it was interesting the actual number of different cover versions that actually exist out there. So, but that's probably one of my personal favourite cover versions, and that's why we are using it in the show. Quite an interesting moment in the show as well, which I won't give too much away about at this stage.
So tell us, Louis and John as well, what's the inspiration behind this production?
I think what's been really interesting about doing this production is that the whole thing's been very, very organic, and what's happened is that the further that we've kind of researched into the subject of Aleister Crowley, who is one of those people that either, if people have heard of him, then you will invariably get a reaction. A lot of people you get a blank face from because they've genuinely never heard of him. But for somebody who was voted the 73rd greatest Briton of all time by a BBC television poll back in 2002, he's clearly and still to this day remains kind of quite an influential figure, I think, on today's society. And I think because Exeter Alternative Theatre historically has always tried to do stuff that's a little bit different to the norm. So certainly 3 years ago we did the play Quills by Doug Wright, which is based on a story about the Marquis de Sade. Again, a very interesting and fascinating character. I guess what's kind of really struck me particularly and personally about Crowley is the fact that, you know, he was British. He spent time in South Devon as well. He, you know, various things took place, but he spent a small amount of his life actually living in Torquay.
Yeah, if I could just come in there and agree with what Louis is saying in terms of the importance of Crowley. I think what is really kind of mesmeric about him is the fact that, yes, a lot of people who have heard of Crowley will be aware of the more kind of dubious or troubling aspects of his history. For example, the Abbey of Thelema that he set up, where, yes, young, impressionable Englishmen went over and indulged in very questionable activities, and it promoted self-harm and other things as a route to spiritual enlightenment. Nonetheless, if you actually read what he wrote, so much of it makes sense, and he was such an accomplished scholar of comparative religion, really, and the way that he tied together disparate mythological traditions with, you know, the main faiths of the world, absolutely inspiring and fascinating.
Yes, of course, yeah. It's weird, you know. Recently, I was telling someone about this, you know, that I was going to be interviewing you, and I was saying, oh, you know, they're doing this play about Crowley and everything, and the person was like, who? And I thought it was so shocking that this person didn't know. I was like, Aleister Crowley, and he was like, no, I've never heard of that person. And I thought, for me, I felt that was very shocking, because I thought, like, everyone in the world knew who Aleister Crowley was because he's the wickedest man in the world, etc., and all this media attention that he got, you know, during his lifetime, and of course even after that. So it's surprising to me that people might not know actually who he is.
Yeah, it's amazing. That poll where he numbered 73, when was that taken, though? Do you know?
2002.
That's a very funny poll. When I read that, I thought that's really funny. The 73rd most wickedest person, what is it, in the world?
No, the 73rd greatest Briton of all time. Yeah, I know, fantastic.
Well, he did help out in the Second World War, did he not?
So he claimed, yes, he claimed that he was a double psychic agent and had his own kind of anti-propaganda campaign going on. What was it? He gave the address of his aunt to the Nazis, asking them expressly to bomb her house.
Yeah.
And I think that's probably one of the key things as well, and that's certainly something that we've tried very hard to work on to bring out in this production, is Crowley had an incredible sense of humour as well. You know, a certain dark wit, absolutely, but he was, he was a well-rounded individual, and his sense of humour is certainly something that we've brought into this production as well. So it gives us that good balance of kind of light and dark.
So tell us a little bit about what parts you each play in the production.
You go first.
Okay, I effectively, and this certainly isn't something that we've kind of put across in the advertising and stuff, is the fact that we are effectively putting Crowley on trial. So the audience become the jury, and I play the role of the judge. But of course, it couldn't be just in a kind of simple English court of law. So I'm actually the celestial judge, so that we're effectively taking Crowley out of his kind of natural surroundings and putting him in this slightly sort of there's different surroundings and stuff, a little bit ethereal.
And I'm multi-rolling a little. I play 3 or 4 kind of smallish roles, but the part that I'm really excited about, and what got me excited about the project to start with, was the chance to enact the Gnostic Mass that Crowley created. So it was a ritual that he wrote and is still performed by various secret societies, especially the OTO that he created and the AA. And it's a kind of hermetic, Kabbalistic, Thelemic take on the Catholic Mass. And we've stripped it down. We've definitely turned it into theatre, but it's great fun to be a part of, and really, I was just bowled over by the opportunity to interpret that. That kind of opportunity doesn't come along too often.
So is there a Gnostic Mass as part of your production?
So the first 15 minutes or so, 10 or 15 minutes of the show is a condensed, dramatized version of the Gnostic Mass. Yes. Wow,
cool. Sounds fantastic. So is the play then sort of a slice of Crowley's life?
I think that's one of the things that we really struggled in putting this production together, was the fact that the more you read about Crowley, whether it's his own writings or whether stuff that's been written about him, there is so much material out there. And I think what we've tried to do very hard is just to it's really just to focus on different elements and different parts of his life. Some of the stuff that is kind of perhaps the Abbey of Thelema and stuff, which is very, very well known. I mean, for those listeners who are not so familiar with Crowley, he set up a commune, the Abbey of Thelema, on Kefaloon in Sicily, and actually got kicked out of the country in 1922 by Mussolini as a result of an article that was published in the Sunday Express, which was basically somebody who had escaped from the Abbey of Thelema, who then came back to England and were in much the same way that today's kind of society happens, that people are always willing and prepared to sell their story to the press, and that's exactly what this woman did. To be fair to her, she did actually lose her husband at the Abbey of Thelema. My understanding is it's the only death that actually occurred at the Abbey. But yeah, he's a controversial character, and I think it's what we've tried to do is focus on different elements of him, because there are hidden sides to him as well, or perhaps less well publicised parts of him. But he was an accomplished mountaineer, for example.
That's right, yeah.
Some of the poetry that he wrote and stuff like that is just it's really, really kind of he was an incredibly intelligent man. And I think where did we even start with a project like that? And so what we've tried to do is to at least present a smattering, which in many ways, and this is what Exeter Alternative Theatre has always set up to do, is to open doors of opportunity to people. If people want to find out more or read more, then we hope at the very least all we've done is push that door ajar slightly, so that people can step through it and research stuff and read stuff for themselves.
Yeah, absolutely.
The guy that died, wasn't he the fellow that got botulism from drinking cat's blood?
That is absolutely correct. Yes, good knowledge. I think
there can't be too many deaths through botulism from drinking cat's blood, though, can there?
Yeah, I mean, it does go to show. I don't know if you've seen the YouTube video of, I can't remember the chap's name, but there's a documentary where he actually explores the ruined abbey, the building that they used, and there's all kinds of creepy paintings inside.
No, I've not seen that, but I'll have to look it up. It's
worth a watch. But yeah, as I mentioned before, the Abbey of Thelema, I think, really represents in some ways the apex of his self-indulgence, really, and the lengths that he went to. Just to pick up on something that Louis said about Crowley being a poet, I think it's amazing considering everything else that he accomplished, and like starting multiple religions or secret societies. But he considered himself first and foremost a poet, and that's really come to the fore in terms of this show. Like his language, his command of language is phenomenal and wonderful and so rich and beautiful. And we should also probably big up the writers of the show at this point. Midge Mullin and Rosie Mullin, a writing team, which have just done a fantastic job. I think the danger or the temptation would have always been to sensationalise it completely and make it really sensationalist, but they have admirably restrained themselves, and I think it's really, really interesting. I was really impressed at the first read through of the script. There's so much kind of biographical info in there. I think if you know about CROWLEY, you'll definitely learn something more from the show. They've done a phenomenal job.
And also, I mean, a big credit, we've tried to incorporate as much as possible is CROWLEY's own words as well, because of the fact that he wrote so much. Many of the lines from the play we've managed to kind of interlace with lines that have been written by, there's actually 3 people that are responsible for the writing of this play, as Phil rightly said, Rose and Midge Mullin, but also Emma Ravensfield as well. So she's my missus, so I have to mention her and give her the big up, bless her. Hello, darling. But it's kind of, we've used as many as possible of CROWLEY's own words, because as Phil rightly says, nobody has kind of, put words together and is able to have been such a wordsmith as CROWLEY was in so many ways, and we really wanted to make sure that we captured the essence of him in this production, not least of all because of course we're actually performing it on the 140th anniversary of his birth.
That's right, yeah, we didn't mention that yet.
Well, we have now.
So we're going to listen to a little bit of music now. This is music that actually is going to be in the show, from the show. So we have got Bruce Dickinson, Man of Sorrows.
That's correct.
And Kophnia Gnostic Anthem. So we'll go for those two. Do you want to talk a little bit about why these two particular songs?
First and foremost, with the Bruce Dickinson track, the reason that we've picked that track as well is because it was actually used in the film Chemical Wedding, which is whereby...
Did he not direct that film?
Yes, he did. Bruce Dickinson directed it, basically. It's a crazy movie, but yeah, it's really out there, and I think this song just captures kind of perhaps some of the, the lighter side, the kind of slightly more... I find this song, incredibly emotional, it really got me the first time I heard it, particularly when you listen to the lyrics. And the Kophnia track, slightly random band that probably not a lot of people have heard of. They're classed as kind of dark ambient and industrial, but the lead singer of that band is a massive kind of follower of CROWLEY and CROWLEY's works, and I think that the track that we've picked this evening is kind of absolutely epitomises that, so enjoy.
Okay, so we're going to have those two tracks, and we're going to be back on again with Louis Ravensfield and Philip John talking about their production CROWLEY, The Wickedest Man in the World.
Here in a church, a small boy is kneeling. He prays to a God he does not know, he cannot feel. All of his sins of childhood he will remember. He will not cry tears, he will not cry. Boy dare not speak their name, trapped inside a body, made to feel only guilt and shame. His anger all his life, I hate myself, he cried. Do what thou wilt, do what thou wilt, he cried. Man of sorrows, I won't see your face. Man of sorrows, you live without a trace. It's small boy wonders, what world did I make? Is your journey over? Has it just begun? Has it just begun?
Online at www.phonic.fm and 106.8 FM.
Thou who art I, beyond all I am, who has no nature and no name, who art when all but thou art gone, thou center and secret of the sun, thou hidden spring of all things known and unknown, thou aloof alone, thou the true fire within the reed, brooding and breeding, source and seed of life, love, liberty and light, thou beyond speech and beyond sight. Thee I invoke, my faint fresh fire, kindling as mine intents aspire. Thee I invoke, abiding one. Thee, center and secret of the sun. And that most holy mystery of which the vehicle am I. Appear most awful and most mild, as it is lawful in thy child. For of the Father and the Son, the Holy Spirit is the norm. Male, female, quintessential one, man being veiled in woman form. Glory and worship in the highest, thou dove, mankind that defiest, being that race most royally run to spring sunshine through winter storm.
Good evening, it's the witching hour, and you're listening to Exe Files on 106.8 FM in Exeter and live online. Hello, wireless listeners, as Richard is fond of saying. I'm your host, Alison. I'm your host, Alison Rockbrand, and I'm here with my co-host, Richard Freeman. Hello, Richard.
Hello.
And we've got some very special guests with us in the studio this evening. The Exeter Alternative Theatre is here to talk about their production, CROWLEY, the Wickedest Man in the World. So we have Louis Ravensfield and Philip John. Hello.
Hi.
Pleasure to be here.
We've just been talking about your production, and you've been telling us a little bit about it. And the music we've just heard as well is from your production. So thank you very much for that. That was Cophnia, Gnostic Anthem, and what was the other one? Bruce Dickinson, Man of Sorrows. So that was really excellent. You were also telling me earlier a little bit about how you've had some trouble getting publicity for the show, and maybe how the subject matter is a little bit too shocking for some media outlets. Do you want to elaborate a little bit on that?
Well, we did. We managed to get press releases out to local press, radio, and indeed television as well. And, well, if I'm going to be brutally honest, this is the only radio show that we've been invited to appear on.
That's a scoop for us, then.
Well, bless you. Thank you. But yeah, it just seems that I think perhaps some of the output that Exeter Alternative Theatre does, and bearing in mind that, you know, we use the word alternative and don't necessarily or haven't historically pushed that to the nth degree, but I think CROWLEY is, as we were talking earlier about, he is one of those people that for those who have heard of him, he will provoke a reaction. You can see it on people's faces. As you said earlier, Alison, you know, there are the people that you kind of mentioned Aleister Crowley to. They've never heard of him. But for those who have, invariably they will have an opinion one way or the other. And I think perhaps that's, you know, if we're going to tackle controversial material, then people will, rather than kind of going, well, actually it was a long time ago, you know, somebody said to me recently, it was only a couple of weeks ago, they read the Wikipedia page on Aleister Crowley and said to me, yeah, he was a bit of a boy, wasn't he? And I guess that's one of the things
that's the biggest understatement I think I've ever heard about Aleister Crowley.
But I think one of the things that's certainly for me personally has really made me think about during the whole course of doing this production is the fact that I wonder what Aleister Crowley would make of the 21st century now. Because of his whole do what thou wilt principle, and I think there is an attitude of that exists in society today, but I'm not necessarily sure that that's what Crowley was ultimately hoping for, because in all of his teachings, one of the reasons that he set up the Abbey of Thelema was to teach people, or to try to get people to find their true will. What is your real purpose on this earth? And I think that's quite deep, and I think it's also one of those questions that if we were to ask ourselves, we would have to kind of dig quite deep to kind of go, you know, what is it I really want to do in my life? And ultimately that's what he was encouraging people to find out, what it was that they really wanted to do in their life, and then just go for it. And how many people in the world can honestly say nowadays that that's ultimately what they've done?
Me.
Well done.
Well done, Richard.
I don't mean doing this radio show, I mean hunting monsters.
Yes. Well done.
Absolutely.
Well
I think
done.
taking that kind of decision, which is outside of the norm of what is popularly considered acceptable or viable or a useful use of your time, is really important. I just absolutely second what Louis said in terms of do what thou wilt should be the whole of the law is often kind of misinterpreted to mean do whatever you want. That's really a kind of a cheap reading of that. It's much more about actually analysing your will, working out what it is in life that you really want, and going after it and not getting distracted by all the rubbish. And in terms of like what would Crowley make of the modern life, I think, you know, with media is so powerful in terms of the potential it has for us to access information, but it's also become so kind of prevalent in our lives that it just distracts us all over the place, and people without I don't know, any kind of training or schooling in exactly the negative impacts that the media can have and the addictive aspects of that just get distracted all over the place. And the other thing to be said, of course, is that do what the world should be the whole of the law is only half of the maxim. The other half is love is the law, love under will. So again, this is not like some kind of hippie-tastic mantra, although Crowley did explore that side of things, but much more that, love as in terms of like a positive outpouring of emotion to the other human beings that you encounter on your way through this life is the way forward. I mean, it's just, if you think about it, it's common sense.
How many people are born, go to school, end up in a job that they have no interest in or even loathe, retire and die and do nothing? Millions and millions and millions of them. So if you want to do something, do it. I was told when I was a kid I wanted to be a zookeeper when I was little, and I said, everyone said you'll never be a zookeeper, that the jobs are too rare in zoos, you never do that. I went out and became a zookeeper, and I became a curator of reptiles, and then later on I wanted to become a cryptozoologist. Everyone said you'll never earn a living out of that, so I went out and became a cryptozoologist. Later on I wanted to be an author. You can't do that, you'll never earn money out of that. I went out and became an author. Do it.
Yeah, it's fantastic, Richard. I think, for me it was a real kind of revelatory moment in my life. Like, similarly, I was a teacher. That was my job. I found myself getting to the point where it was my identity. I was defining myself as a teacher, and I just got to the point where, I wanted to make that break and think, what do I actually want to do? This is not what I actually want to do. And I think a massive part of it is just realising that there is a massive part of the population that is happy, really, to do those jobs that need to be done. So just let them do it. If you feel like that, if you feel that way, let them do it and do what you really want to do.
Well, that's the whole thing about the true will.
Absolutely.
I mean, to some degree, first of all, it's a whole process to unite with the true will. Maybe we'll talk about this in a few minutes. I don't know to what level you are insiders into esotericism or Thelema, but to discover the true will is not something you just suddenly do. I think it's a whole process. As such, the Abramelin ritual, which you were talking about, Richard, that is all part of that. At the same time, some people are not interested in doing that. They don't. My true will is just to be happy and live.
Thank the gods, because we need them to do all the boring jobs.
So it's not.
I might draw the line at doing an 18-month ritual.
Well, I mean I've done a 1-year long ritual actually, and then it became 2 years actually. So, and that was really extreme, and I would probably never do it again. I think because it just lasted forever, but it was really illuminating to do the ritual every day and be part of this really 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 long ritual. It definitely was transformational.
I did one for a year once to create a tulpa, and that was scarily successful.
Yeah, no, that's very scary magic actually. Once you create them, you're like, why did I do that? Why did I do that?
I'm glad, and I hope it's still scurrying around with leaves.
Forgive my ignorance, Richard. What's a tulpa?
A tulpa, it's a Tibetan term. It means a thought form, and it's often people misinterpret it as a Buddhist thing, but it's not. It's part of the Tibetan native culture that was before Buddhism, and it was sort of adopted by Buddhism. How major religions come into a place and sort of absorb the local traditions. It's the idea that under intense concentration, ritualistic concentration, you can create a three-dimensional physical image of something, an animal, a person, an object, that will look real to other people. Perhaps the most famous example is Dame Alexander David Neal, who was a French woman who travelled in Tibet in the early part of the 20th century and became a Tibetan Lama, and practicing these rituals of concentration for a very long time, she made a tulpa, a thought form of a monk, and she imagined him as a jolly little man with a smiley face, pudgy, and he would follow her entourage around, and people just thought he was another monk. But after about 6 months, he began to take on a sort of sly and look about him, and he became more slender, and she realised that he was trying to gain his own independence, pull away from her, and no longer be her creation, but be an independent entity. And she said she decided to destroy him at that point, and it took as long to destroy the tulpa as to create it.
Oh, fascinating.
I would say that to destroy them is actually a fairly difficult process, taking at least as long as it takes to create them.
I just left mine in a cellar in Leeds.
I've got one running around as well, somewhere. I was going to ask you to what degree you consider yourselves insiders or practitioners of esotericism, magic in general, or the occult.
Right, who wants to go first?
You don't. I mean, obviously, you don't have to answer. It's a personal question. But
yeah, I think you better go
we're
first.
We're very open, and when we did our first show, we talked about our own practices.
Yeah, cool. I think that personally speaking, magic has been growing in my life as something that I'm really, really interested in, and started off very much as an intellectual pursuit that I wanted to read books and was fascinated. Israel Regardie particularly, and his kind of publication of lots of the Golden Dawn ideas really spoke to me. Hermeticism as a concept grabbed me. I read the Hermetica and bits of it I found very powerful. I mean, my background before teaching, my background's in English literature and poetry, and I just love the Hermetica really. And the history, the tarot is really big for me. I would say that I'm just at the threshold now where I'm beginning to explore various rituals and become more of a practicing magician from a purely academic one. I've struggled to find colleagues or compatriots on that journey, so I've been very solitary in that pursuit up to now. Again, going back to what I said before about wanting to take part in the Gnostic Mass, that was why it was so attractive to me, that opportunity to actually enact a ritual with like-minded people and to transform it into theatre. It was a really powerful proposition.
And I guess for me, I've kind of, over the years, I've dabbled in all sorts, but then during the course of this conversation it also occurred to me that we talk about ritual and stuff, and Richard obviously mentions the 1 year ritual that he did, but then the human race is conditioned to kind of be ritualistic, even those people that have to, you get up for school, you get up for college, you get up for work, it's a discipline, it's a ritual, it's a process that you go through, and I think ultimately if ritual is performed in order to better oneself or achieve a goal in a life, I think a lot of people perform ritual without perhaps even realizing it, that just that focus of where it is they want to be, what it is they want to achieve in life. And I think you focus on that and your life will take you through a series of rituals that will ultimately get you where it is that you want to be. And that relates absolutely back to what CROWLEY was trying to teach, which was about true will and stuff. And I think probably a lot of us are following a path of true will, albeit without the kind of the outrageousness and perhaps the more formula of ritual, but we almost naturalistically perform ritual on a daily basis.
I think that's definitely true. So before we go, Philip, John, do you want to talk a little bit about your theatre company? Because I understand you also have a separate theatre company to Exeter Alternative Theatre.
Thank you, Alison. Yes, I am co-founder of a company called the Four of Swords Theatre, named after the tarot card. We specialise in multimedia, immersive, normally promenade-based adaptations of classic literary stories. And so far we did Jekyll and Hyde at Polesmore House, which, if you know Polesmore House, is a wonderfully decrepit, ruined mansion. We did Macbeth in the Beer Quarry Caves, subterranean, magic-infused version of Macbeth. We did Sir Gawain and the Green Knight at the Exeter Cathedral, which was wonderful. We did Faustus at St. Priory. So we have an attraction to the kind of more magically related stories. And then most recently we did Jason and the Argonauts for part of Exmouth Festival, which was at Royal College, which was a lighter, more family-oriented show, but obviously got a chance to get in some Medea action there. It was good fun.
And do you have anything coming up?
Well, we do. I mean, we haven't officially announced anything. We are kind of exploring possibilities. Frankenstein is next on our list to do. We've got a lot of kind of educational activities, workshops and things that we run concurrently with our normal performances. So we are looking at shows that are on the syllabus and things like that. So Frankenstein's next up. Actually, this is an exclusive for you. We're going to be doing it at Great Fulford, which is the house where Fulfords from the effing Fulfords TV show live, which is an incredible venue and really, really exciting. So yeah, looking forward to that one.
Great. And where can we hear more about your theatre company?
If you're at all interested, then we'd love to hear from you. It's www.for-of-swords.com or send me an email on phil@for-of-swords.com and I'll stick you on the mailing list. Thank you very much.
Excellent. Louis, do you want to give us the details of your show? And so on?
Certainly. Our website doesn't have any hyphens at all. It's simply www.eattheatre.co.uk. Our show is performing at the Barnfield Theatre for one night only on the 140th anniversary of the birth of Aleister Crowley, the wickedest man in the world, on Monday nights at 8 p.m.
And the tickets are £13 as well.
Lucky 13.
Yeah,
yes, indeed.
And you've also got some special beer as well.
Yes, we got in contact with a local brewery based up in Columpton called Big Rabbit Brewery, and they have brewed us their very own Crowley Ale, which we've subtitled, so it's Crowley, the wickedest ale in the world. And that is available at a handful of pubs in the local area, namely in Exeter City Centre, and I will give them a plug, the Beer Cellar.
Oh yes. And is that it?
And it's also available at the Passage House in Topsham, and it's also available at the Barnfield Theatre as well. They're selling it at the moment, and we'll certainly be selling hopefully quite a lot of it on the night of our show, because after people have seen it, they'll probably need a drink.
And what are your future plans for EAT?
I don't know at the moment. My biggest focus at the moment is getting through the next 3 days. We've got a grueling weekend ahead of rehearsals and stuff, just to make sure that we're ready for Monday night, which we will be. 100% we will be. But it's all in the art of the rehearsal.
Well, Dionysus prays and break a leg, and in Montreal we say la merde, which is shit. And I'm only saying that because it is a theatre tradition. So anyone who's offended by that word, it was just a translation. Yes, very best of luck, and I will certainly be there. I have a ticket, and a couple of my friends as well. So I'm sure it's going to be absolutely wonderful. I'm really, really looking forward to it. We're going to close with another song from your production. It is Cophnia Gnostic Anthem. Do you want to say a few words about that?
Cophnia are a band that the lead singer is certainly very, very influenced by the works of Aleister Crowley, and I think this probably shines through in the song that you're about to hear. So enjoy, and if you want something a little bit different to the norm, then the Barnfield Theatre is the place to be on Monday night.
And thank you for having us.
Thank you very much. You've both been fantastic, and thank you, Richard. Join us next week. Richard is going to be going away on vacation, so we're going to be having a special guest co-host, and we are going to be interviewing Paul Green, who is a playwright who has recently released his book of plays, including Babylon, which is about the Babylon working by Jack Parsons, which is a show which I actually produced in 2005. So his book has just come out, produced by Scarlet Imprint, and it's a collection of his plays, and so very, very excellent collection. And so he's going to be on the show next week, so join us for that, and we will see you then. Farewell.
true fire within the reefs, brooding and breeding, source and seed of life, love, liberty and light. Thou beyond speech and beyond sight, thee I invoke, my faint fresh fire, kindling as mine intent aspire, thee I invoke, abiding one, thee with the center and secret bridal breath, the sun, shepherdess, and that most holy mysteries, silken shawl, of which the vehicle and beautiful God in the moon appear most awful and most mild, as it is lawful in thy child, for of the Father and the Son, the Holy Spirit is the norm, male, female, quintessential one, man being veiled in woman form, glory and worship in the highest, thou dove, mankind that defiest, being that race most royally run to spring sunshine through winter storm, living tree that is spirit and soul and body and brain, come over the sea, Eopan, devil or God, to me, my man, glory and worship be to thee, Son of the world, ash wonder tree, glory to thee, from gilded tomb, glory to thee, from waiting womb, glory to thee, from earth unplowed, glory to thee, from virgin vow, glory to thee, true unity of the eternal Trinity, glory to thee, thou sire and I, and self of I am, that I am, wait and write and wrestle with air that hath no bound. Glory to thee, from gilded tomb, glory to thee, from waiting womb, glory to thee, from earth unplowed, glory to thee, from virgin vow, glory to thee, true unity of the eternal Trinity, glory to thee, thou sire and am, and self of I am, that I am, all devourer, all begetter, give me the sign of the open eye, and the token erect of thorny thigh, and the word of madness and mystery. O Pan, Eopan, 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 Pan, 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 Pan. I am a man. Do as thou wilt, as a great God can. O Pan, Eopan, 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 Pan. Io Pan, Pan, Pan. I am thy mate, I am thy man, goat of thy flock. I am gold, I am God, flesh to thy bow, flower to thy rod, with hooves of steel I race on the rocks, through solstice, star